All right, let's talk about tariffs. All right, so we know the big story with the tariffs is that Trump came out swinging. He stuck it to Mexico. He stuck it to Canada and China. We're going to get to all three of those and how that happened. And, we had, I was on with Fiorella yesterday. We were talking about this, and it was the idea is that a lot of people don't understand how tariffs work and what they're about, but it does end up ultimately at the end of the day, the brief summary of tariffs is they kind of hurt everyone. Everyone kind of suffers. A lot of times people don't know that the small businesses suffer. So this is stuff and we know Trump knows this. We know he knows it deep down, but he's the kind of guy that will come to the table hard. It's a game of poker. People talk about the game of chess. They say, "Oh, Trump's playing 5D chess. He's playing 6D chess." Well, this looks more like a poker game. This looks more like a poker player coming to the table. He's the new guy at the table. He's maybe played before, but he's just sitting down now, and he's seeing all the other players have been there. And right away, he takes his chips and he throws them out off the first hand. And they go, "What the hell is this guy putting all his money out in the first hand?" He's, "Oh, that's right. I got the cards." And he's basically forcing them to fold. That's what it looks like from my vantage point. At least 2 out of the 3. Now, he didn't get them all to fold, but let's start with the first one because this happened first. This was yesterday. We had Mexico and the U.S. work out a deal. This is what Trump would call the art of the deal. This is what he tweeted out yesterday, and this seems to check out with the president, with her in Mexico. This seems to check out all the way here. Hold on, let me grab it. Here we go. The uploading's taking a moment. Get right to it here. So what happens when we got to do our own tech. Okay, here we go. Donald Trump tweeted this out. "I just spoke with President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico. It was a very friendly conversation wherein she agreed to immediately supply 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the border separating Mexico and the United States. These soldiers will be specifically designated to stop the flow of fentanyl." This has happened. We already saw a report this morning that they stopped a whole mess of fentanyl immediately. So this is already in works. This is like just 24-hour turnaround. So this is a real thing. The illegal migrants into our country. We further agreed to immediately pause the anticipated tariffs for a 1-month period. So this is so let's be clear about this. This is a 30-day clock that started basically yesterday, or this morning, or what I guess it was the Tuesday morning. So we're on a 30-day clock, which time we'll have negotiations headed by Secretary of State Rubio, the Secretary of Treasury, and the Commerce Howard Lutnick, high-level representatives of Mexico. I look forward to participating in those negotiations with Sheinbaum as we attempt to achieve a deal between our two countries. So to me, this looks very reasonable. I think this is something that, I would assume this was the goal. I don't think the goal was, and I know a lot of MAGAs think, yeah, tariffs, let's tariff the crap out of them. I think the goal was to have a deal. And then we saw this happen today. Check this out. Canada, Justin Trudeau, who we know is on his way out, but he did have a phone call, and now he's qualifying Trump. He's saying, "I just had a good call with Trump." Canada is implementing our $1.3 billion border plan, reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology, and personnel, enhance coordination with our American partners, and increase resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border. In addition, Canada is making new commitments to appoint a fentanyl czar. Wow. We will list cartels as terrorists, ensure 24/7 eyes on the border, launch a Canada-U.S. joint strike force to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. I also signed a new intelligence directive on organized crime and fentanyl, and we will be backing it with $200 million. The proposed tariffs will be paused for at least 30 days. Wow, this is a lot of action here. Look, it's hard. Look, you can say, there's other ways to do this, other ways to do it than Trump did, but you can't deny this poker analogy, Jay. What do you think of that? This is the guy who sat at the table and said, I came to play, and he put his chips out, and 2 of them folded.
Yeah. I mean, if we are getting more protection on the border and the borders are improving, then the border situation is improving, then that is a net positive. However, when it comes to stopping the flow of drugs, I just have a hard time believing that we can do that without seriously addressing like the corruption in the intelligence agencies that's allowing them to flow in. Because, let's just take a step back, and take a look at what's happened in our past. Like, while the Sinaloa cartel was running Mexico because they had a deal with our DEA and our intelligence agencies over here, a non-prosecution agreement, we were sending them guns and we were empowering them. And at the same time, we were making record drug busts. And, the same way how they just stopped a big bunch of fentanyl coming in, this morning, it's possible they got a bigger batch of fentanyl coming in, like that didn't get caught. So, it really doesn't feel like we're making progress on the actual problems unless we talk about why these problems are happening in the first place. Like these cartels, like I remember HSBC, which is a pretty big German bank. They got caught like laundering money for the Sinaloa cartel. Nobody at HSBC ever went to jail over that. Our intelligence agencies have partnerships with these people. Like if you watch Narcos, like the television series on Netflix, it becomes obvious, like that they did it there. And there's even now evidence coming out that Pablo Escobar was also working with some of our folks for a while too. So if we are making record drug busts, but we're still allowing other people to become more powerful and to get into the country, then are we not just creating more bureaucracy? Like, are we not just creating more ways to aid the symptoms of the problem without actually solving the reasons why the problem's happening in the first place? Because again, if you want to talk about why we get so much illegal immigration coming into America and why there's so much illegal immigration going into Europe, a lot of that can be traced back to our foreign policy of destabilizing the countries that these people are coming from. So when I hear Trump say, America, we've done some wrong in these countries in the past, and we've interfered in their local affairs, and some of our intelligence agencies, which I've been calling out for some time now, have actually been causing problems over there too, not just for me in my personal life, because that's the only way he ever actually criticizes intelligence agencies. He says, oh, they're bothering me. But he doesn't say what they're doing overseas and their impact in all these other places. So I'll take him seriously if he starts talking about the root causes of these problems and lays out a plan about how he's going to tackle those. And all this 5D chess stuff, like, I can't really believe it until I see substantial progress being made towards those goals. I think this is a classic, moment. Like it's just faking out his supporters. That's all it is. Because his supporters think, oh, this is all great news right now. And maybe there will be some small short-term benefits. But if we don't stop interfering in all these different countries, we're just going to continue spending more and more money trying to figure out ways to keep these people out. So we got to come up with a better long-term solution than putting more people on the border. Like we have to look internally about what we're doing to cause the problems over there. And it's not just us. There's corruption over there too, but we have to stop our role in it.
That's never going to happen, Jay, because the American empire, as you've mentioned before, the Western imperialism machine is never going to self-reflect on its imposing rule on the planet, and that we do cause all of these problems. We cause all of the border problems because we are the ones that create the refugee problem. We create the people that have to leave the countries that we've destroyed, and we'll never. And then you talk about the drug problem. I mean, yes, it's great that we're on the fentanyl, mission right now, but you could trace that back to the CIA. You could trace all of this stuff. We know what the CIA was up to in the in the 50s, 60s, 70s. We know how they implement drugs in places that they want to have more crime, more violence, more police brutality. We know that happens. So the Mexican cartel. Whatever's going on in Canada, Trudeau's mentioning as far as we're going to crack down and call these, cartels terrorists. Okay, great. I see. Look, I'm just trying to call out Trump's game plan as accurate as possible, where we know the Democrats will never call out exactly what he's doing. Because why? They're also defending the same empire. And if they were to be honest about what he's doing or not doing, then they would also have to take responsibility for that. And as we all know, that's the one thing that everyone in Congress stands up and applauds together. It's American imperialism. They all agree on that. Even when Hitler is running our country, apparently they love to stand up and give standing ovations to Netanyahu together and to anything else that we're doing, militarily speaking. We're all in on it together, even with Hitler, I guess, apparently. So that's why these conversations are important. And I appreciate your nuanced take on it, Jay, because yes, this isn't necessarily, even if we score a couple points here, we aren't necessarily doing anything good for the long run. And it does seem like smoke and mirrors. This also concerns me because it looks like that China is not playing the game the same way that Mexico and Canada is. This came up from CNN Business. We saw it says China hits back as Trump's tariffs go into effect. Hong Kong, Beijing announced a broad package of economic measures targeting the United States on Tuesday, hitting back after Trump imposed 10% tariffs on Chinese imports. The fresh duties announced by China's Ministry of Finance levy a 15% tax on certain types of coal and liquefied natural gas and a 10% tariff on crude oil, agricultural machinery, large displacement cars, and pickup trucks. The measures take effect on February 10th. The Ministry of Commerce and China's Customs Administration also announced new export controls effective immediately on more than 24 metal products and related technologies. Those include tungsten, a critical mineral typically used in industrial and defense applications, as well as tellurium, which can be used to make solar cells. So it seems like, Jay, China's not playing this game, and these tariffs are going to take effect. They're just coming right out. They go, I see, oh, you're all in, Trump. I see what you're betting. We'll match you and we'll raise you more. That's what it looks like to me. If this was a big poker game, doesn't seem to be working as well in this case. What do you think? So what do you suppose the spin is going to be from Trump's team? And then, of course, I guess the spin from the DNC is a lot more obvious. But what do you think the spin is from the Trump team on this one?
Well, I think they are banking on the idea that most Americans don't really understand how tariffs work, and they'll be able to essentially just shift all the blame for the increasing cost of living onto China to make it seem like they're the victims, and China and the globalists are against us and all that. Because I'll never forget this, man. Like, the day after the elections happened, I remember coming across a headline that said one of the most Google phrases that day was, "What is a tariff?" So that means the day after we overwhelmingly elected this man that promised to eliminate and implement a gigantic change to our financial system, the day after he wins, not the day before, Matt, the day after he wins, everyone now wants to figure out, well, what is a tariff and how does it work? And, you touched on it a little bit, because the person who pays the tariff is the business importing the good from that country. So yes, it does hurt the country because it means the business in America can't afford to pay as much to China. So they have to buy less of the Chinese product most of the time, or they're just going to straight up pass on most, if not all, of the increase onto the customer. So, and then the customer winds up buying less. So it does have an impact on the customer, the business, and the place it's coming from. And when you look at what he's proposed, he essentially keeps quoting President McKinley as the example that he wants to use on how to structure the economy. Don't take my word for it, guys. Just go back and look what wealth inequality was like when there was zero income tax and all of the government revenue was being raised off tariffs. I have a surprise for you. Or maybe if you know anything about economics, it won't be that much of a surprise. But income inequality and wealth inequality was much greater back then. The poor was a lot poorer. The rich had a much bigger percentage of the pie. So if that's what Trump wants to take us back to, and that's his golden age, it's going to be great for him, Elon, George Soros, and the rest of them who are all working together behind the scenes. But the rest of us are going to get screwed because it's actually considered a regressive tax. And what that means is that it disproportionately affects people with less money and less income, because if the price of eggs doubles from $7 to $14, that hurts the middle class. That hurts the working class. If the price of eggs double from $7 to $14, but Trump is able to save millions and hundreds of millions of dollars on his taxes, then he's coming out a winner. We're the ones who are coming out losers. Now, do I actually expect him to eliminate the IRS? No, because they have to fund the war machine, and they can't fund the war machine just based off the money that they're going to be getting from tariffs. And if they print all the money, then like the dollar will deflate even quicker. So I don't expect them to get rid of the IRS. They may cut taxes a little bit, but they can't get rid of it completely. And this is not to say that tariffs can never be used for good, because I wouldn't say that I'm completely against tariffs, Matt. What I would say is that if we want to strategically grow an industry in America, then we can design tariffs that help our local businesses and our local industries flourish over here and protect it from competition overseas, which may use some unsavory practices and some cheap labor that we don't want to compete with, right? So there may be a way to implement tariffs strategically, but if you're using it as a political weapon to get other people to bend to your will, then it's not being used in a way to grow the industries here. You're just gambling with the wealth and the cost of living of Americans to achieve your political goals, which may or may not be in the interest of the American people. So that's what I got to think about it.
Well, at least the good news is that more people are Googling shit these days and finding out for themselves. That could be the one good takeaway. Now
Yeah.
they're trying to educate themselves. I hope that Democrats can catch up, because I'll give a shout out to the MAGAs. I'll tell you this, going on Twitter and seeing like some thoughtful pushback and commentary and some, skepticism. I love seeing that. I love seeing that from people who vote for the guy to say, wait a minute, is this right? Because you don't get anything like that on the Democrat side. It's so wow, man. We spent 4 years. We spent these 4 years of 100% justifying everything Biden did, everything, switching out, doing the bait and switch with the Kamala thing, and all the funding a genocide and a proxy war, and just thing after thing after thing, and the senile, no, he's sharp as a tack, and you're just like, are you guys not going to have any critique on the thing you voted for? Well, I'll give it to the MAGAs. They are at least getting skeptical, at least saying, that's interesting. What is a tariff? Let me look it up. That's interesting. How does this work? Wait, what is this going to lead to? Wait, mRNA technology? What? I thought we were against that. So I like seeing that. I hope there's more of it. Bravo to them. Democrats need to take a lesson from the MAGAs in their, just that healthy skepticism, is what I'll call it.
Mm-hmm. Hold your team accountable. Like if you're not willing to even have a conversation, and that's why, like, I have, decent conversations with both sides, but I do find that the most polarizing conversations and the people who really don't want to hear anything that deviates from their view do tend to be more on the left. Like even libertarians, you can have a conversation with libertarians and they're willing to hear you out. They'll make your points and they won't instantly call you names like as soon as you start disagreeing with some of their policies. But with the Democrats, like the name calling, man, like without addressing like the root of the issue is going to be their downfall. And they don't realize they've become the establishment. Like it was the Republicans when it was George Bush and those guys, like back in power. And don't get me wrong, they've always had a presence on both sides, but I would say it leaned more towards Republicans in that era. Now the establishment does seem to lean more towards the Democrats, even though they always maintain their presence on both sides. So The anti-establishment wave in the base and like in the American people is now more center right. However, even these people who describe themselves as center right, like I'm seeing more conversations about Medicare for all and universal health care, you know, Matt, even coming on the right now. So like you can identify with the left or the right, you know, if you want to. I don't think that's the important part. The important part is that we're able to sit down and look at facts together and then come up with productive solutions that aren't just like, well, team left says this or team right says that. So the more we get to looking at the numbers and the data, the more progress this country is going to make.